Mike lived for League of Legends. Every spare moment was spent in his gaming den. His fingers danced across the keyboard. The glow of the monitor illuminated his face. Ranked matches were his drug. Victory was the only high he craved.
Tonight was no different. I was ready to carry my team to victory. I locked in my favorite champion, Ahri, the nine-tailed fox. The familiar loading screen materialized. I was ready to unleash my skills upon the rift.
He clicked accept and the world around him dissolved. A wave of dizziness washed over Mike. The familiar surroundings of his room melted away. He had been playing his favorite game, Summoner's Rift, for hours, completely immersed in the virtual world. But this time, something felt different. The lines between reality and the game began to blur. He could no longer tell where his room ended and the game began. The walls seemed to shimmer and dissolve, replaced by a surreal landscape that was both familiar and alien. Panicked, he tried to rip his headset off, but his hands wouldn't respond. It was as if they were paralyzed, frozen in place by some unseen force. He could feel the weight of the headset pressing down on him, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't move his arms. His heart raced, pounding in his chest like a drum. He could hear his own breath, shallow and rapid, echoing in his ears. The sense of helplessness was overwhelming. His vision swam with swirling colors. Nausea gripped him. The vibrant hues twisted and turned, creating a kaleidoscope of chaos that made his head spin. He felt as if he were being pulled into a vortex, spiraling deeper and deeper into the unknown. The sensation was disorienting, making it hard to focus on anything. He could feel the bile rising in his throat, the sickening feeling of vertigo taking hold. He squeezed his eyes shut, willing the dizziness to pass. He took deep breaths, trying to calm himself, but the sensation persisted. It was as if the world around him was spinning out of control, and he was powerless to stop it. He could feel the sweat on his brow, the cold clamminess of fear gripping him. He tried to ground himself to find something solid to hold on to, but there was nothing, just the endless swirl of colors and the overwhelming sense of disorientation.
When I finally opened my eyes, I found myself bathed in an ethereal light. It was soft and warm, enveloping me like a comforting embrace. The fog that had clouded my vision began to clear, revealing a landscape that was both beautiful and strange. The light seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, casting a gentle glow on everything it touched. It was as if I had stepped into a dream, a place where reality and fantasy intertwined. Verdant trees towered overhead, their leaves rustling in a gentle breeze. The sound was soothing, a soft whisper that seemed to speak to me. The trees were unlike any I had ever seen, their trunks thick and ancient, their branches reaching high into the sky. The leaves shimmered in the light, creating a canopy of green that stretched as far as the eye could see. It was a place of tranquility, a sanctuary from the chaos that had consumed me. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and blooming flowers. It was a heady aroma, rich and intoxicating. The ground beneath my feet was soft and yielding, covered in a carpet of moss and flowers. Each step I took seemed to release a new wave of fragrance, a symphony of scents that filled my senses. It was a reminder of the beauty and wonder of the natural world, a stark contrast to the sterile environment of my room. I was in Summoner's Rift, but it was real, terrifyingly real. The game I had played so many times had come to life around me, its familiar landscapes now tangible and alive. The realization sent a shiver down my spine. This was no longer a game, it was a living, breathing world, and I was a part of it. The boundaries between reality and fantasy had been shattered, leaving me stranded in a place where anything was possible. The adventure had just begun, and I had no idea what awaited me in this new and wondrous realm.
Panic welled up inside him. It was a feeling he had never experienced before, a deep primal fear that gripped his very soul. The darkness around him seemed to close in, suffocating him, making it hard to breathe. His mind raced, trying to make sense of the overwhelming terror that consumed him. He tried to speak, but no sound escaped his lips. His throat felt tight, as if an invisible hand was choking him, preventing any words from forming. The silence was deafening, amplifying his fear. He wanted to call out for help, to scream until his lungs gave out, but he was trapped in a voiceless nightmare. He looked down at his hands. They were gone, replaced by slender, fur-covered paws, tipped with razor-sharp claws. The transformation was surreal, like something out of a twisted fairy tale. He could feel the fur bristling against his skin, the claws digging into the ground. It was both terrifying and mesmerizing, a strange blend of horror and fascination. His heart pounded in his chest. Each beat was a thunderous drum echoing in his ears. He could feel the blood rushing through his veins, the adrenaline coursing through his body. It was a sensation he couldn't control, a wild, untamed energy that threatened to consume him. He felt a strange connection to this place, to this body. It was as if he had always been meant to be here, in this form. The fear began to ebb away, replaced by a sense of belonging. He was no longer just a man, he was something more, something powerful and ancient.
I was Ahri. My mind reeled. The realization hit me like a tidal wave, overwhelming and undeniable. I had become the nine-tailed fox, a creature of legend and myth. My thoughts were a chaotic whirlwind, struggling to comprehend the impossible transformation. It was as if my consciousness had been ripped from my body and thrust into the avatar I controlled on the screen. The virtual world I had once played in was now my reality. The lines between the game and the real world had blurred, leaving me stranded in a place I didn't understand. Except this wasn't a game anymore. The forest around me was alive with sounds and smells, the air thick with the scent of earth and foliage. Every rustle of leaves, every distant howl sent shivers down my spine. This was a world of danger and mystery, far removed from the safety of my home. This was real. The fear was paralyzing. I could feel the weight of my new form, the power and the responsibility that came with it. The reality of my situation settled in, a heavy burden that threatened to crush me. But beneath the fear, there was a spark of determination. I was Ahri, the nine-tailed fox, and I would find a way to survive in this new world.
The sounds of battle jolted him from his terror. The cacophony of war was overwhelming, a symphony of chaos that threatened to drown him. Every clang of metal, every roar of a spell, every scream of agony seemed to echo in his mind, amplifying his fear. He could feel his heart pounding in his chest, each beat a reminder of the life-or-death struggle he was embroiled in. The clash of steel, the roar of spells, the screams of the dying. It was a battlefield like no other, a place where the line between life and death was razor thin. The air was thick with the smell of blood and sweat, the ground littered with the fallen. Each moment was a desperate struggle for survival, a test of skill and courage. The warriors fought with everything they had, their weapons flashing in the dim light, their spells crackling with energy. He was in the middle of a match, his team clashing with the enemy. It was a high-stakes game, each player a vital part of the team. They moved with practiced precision, their strategies honed through countless battles. The enemy was relentless, their attacks coming in waves. But his team held their ground, their determination unwavering. They fought as one, their movements synchronized, their attacks coordinated. It was a dance of death, a ballet of blades and spells.
Darius, the Hand of Noxus, stalked toward him, his massive axe dripping with blood. The sight of the towering warrior sent a chill down his spine. Darius was a force of nature, a juggernaut of destruction. His presence on the battlefield was like a dark cloud, casting a shadow over everything. Each step he took was filled with menace, his eyes burning with a fierce determination. The blood on his axe was a testament to his prowess, a grim reminder of the lives he had taken.
Then came Zed, the master of shadows, his shurikens flying through the air with deadly precision. Zed moved like a phantom, his form barely visible as he darted through the battlefield. His shurikens were like extensions of his will, each one finding its mark with unerring accuracy. He was a master of deception, his movements a blur of speed and agility. The shadows seemed to bend to his will, cloaking him in darkness. He was a predator, and the battlefield was his hunting ground. Mike as Ahri was in the thick of it, his instincts taking over. Ahri was a champion of grace and power, her movements fluid and precise. Mike had spent countless hours mastering her abilities, and now in the heat of battle his training paid off. He moved with a dancer's grace, his attacks swift and deadly. Each spell he cast was a testament to his skill, each dodge a display of his agility. He was in the zone, his mind focused, his body reacting without hesitation. He dodged and weaved, unleashing bolts of arcane energy. The battlefield was a blur of motion, a whirlwind of magic and steel. Mike's spells crackled with energy, each one a burst of power. He moved with a fluid grace, his body a blur of motion. The enemy's attacks came fast and furious, but he was ready. He dodged and weaved, his movements a dance of survival. Each bolt of arcane energy he unleashed was a testament to his skill, a display of his mastery over his champion. But fear made him clumsy. Despite his skill, the fear gnawed at him, a constant presence in the back of his mind. It made his movements hesitant, his attacks less precise. He could feel the weight of the battle pressing down on him, the fear threatening to overwhelm him, but he couldn't afford to give in. He had to push through, to fight with everything he had. The battle was far from over, and he was determined to see it through to the end.
pain. He never expected that.
The searing agony of Zed's shuriken tearing through his shoulder.
The bone-crushing impact of Darius's axe slamming into his side.
It was excruciating, unbearable.
And it was real.
He realized with a horrifying certainty that death here was permanent.
There were no respawns, no second chances.
He had one life, and it was bleeding away on the battlefield.
He had to win. He had to survive. His teammates fought bravely alongside him. They were real people, trapped here just like him.
I felt a surge of responsibility for them.
But one by one they fell. Garen, the might of Demacia, cut down by Darius's axe. Lux, the Lady of Luminosity, incinerated by Brand's fiery wrath. Each death was a gut punch. His team was being slaughtered.
I fought on, fueled by desperation and a growing rage. The enemy nexus, our target, loomed in the distance. I had to reach it.
The path to the enemy nexus was littered with bodies, his own team, the enemy team. It was a massacre. But through the carnage he saw it. The enemy nexus pulsing with energy, it was within reach.
I pushed forward, ignoring the pain, the exhaustion, the fear. My vision blurred. I stumbled. But I wouldn't stop. I couldn't. I had to destroy the nexus. It was my only hope of escape.
He was so close. He could almost taste victory. But then Darius was there, his axe a black crescent against the crimson sky.
I was too weak to dodge, too slow to react.
The axe found its mark. A searing pain ripped through his chest.
I looked down at the gaping wound in my chest, at the blood staining my fur crimson. I felt myself fading, my lifeblood spilling onto the blood-soaked ground. I had failed.
He closed his eyes, welcoming the embrace of oblivion. His lifeless hand fell away from the keyboard. The glow of the monitor illuminated his pale face. His eyes stared blankly ahead, reflecting the chilling image on the screen. The word defeat blazed across the screen, mocking his demise.
And in the reflection of those lifeless eyes, a sinister grin spread across the face of Ahri, the nine-tailed fox.
The game was over, and Mike was gone. Trapped forever in the digital hellscape of the Summoner's Rift. Another victim claimed by the seductive yet deadly world of League of Legends.